So let's move ahead then in that case. Okay. We want to discuss what light is. Basically, if we want to talk about what light is, okay, so what is light? So light is an electromagnetic wave. You can see the wave is being represented in front of you in 3 dimensions, where it would be comprising of, you know, both the fields, electric field as well as magnetic field, and the direction, say for example. And how are these 3 directions? They are mutually perpendicular to each other. This is how a light wave would be represented in 3 dimensions. Okay, uh, I believe somebody has kept it not muted it. Okay, please see to it that you all mute the audio, so that it does not create disturbance. Okay, all right. Now I was talking about what light is. So light is an electromagnetic wave as shown here in the on the slide basically. Yeah, friends. Just let's start with it. What is light? So light is an electromagnetic wave as seen in the figure. Okay. And not only electromagnetic wave, it is a transverse electromagnetic wave. Now when I say transverse electromagnetic wave, it will be comprising of alternate crests and troughs. Now it comprises of electric field as well as magnetic field mutually perpendicular to each other, and both of them are perpendicular to the direction of propagation of the wave. This is something very important. So light specifically is a range of electromagnetic radiation that can be detected by human eye. Okay, so we call that as light. Now there are some electromagnetic waves which cannot be detected by human eye. So that category won't come under the concept of light. Here specifically we are discussing electromagnetic wave which can be seen by detected by human eye. So that's how you define light waves. Please make a note of it. When I say make a note of it, for all those who are attending it for the first time, see to it that you take the screenshots of it so that they serve as notes for you. Once you are done with it, let me know so that we move ahead.
Yes, sir.
Done, sir.
Good. So let's move ahead. The next point which I want to make regarding light is what will be the speed of light. Okay, so let's talk about the speed of light. So how do you define it? It's the speed with which the light wave will travel in a given medium, you can see. So for example, the light will move with a speed of 3 into 10 raised to 8 meter per second. Okay, so this is something we can call speed of light in air. And it's denoted by the notation C here onwards. Okay, so make a note of this. Again, an important aspect to be noted. Once done, just put it in the chat box so that I come to.
Done, sir.
So let's move ahead then. So last time we have seen regarding reflection of light, refraction. Sorry. Today, specifically, we will be talking about reflection. But then, when we talk about reflection and refraction, we need to know some basic parameters involved with light. Okay? So the first parameter which you should know is the wavelength of light. How we define wavelength basically. So let's plot a two-dimensional wave for a light. So because it's a transverse wave, it will be comprising of alternate crest and troughs. So the distance you can see between the 2 points. Now, if I'm talking about this point over here and this point over here, they both are in the same state of vibration. Or in simple words, I can say they both are in same phase. So the distance between such two points on the wave which are in same phase or same state of vibration will be called as wavelength, and it is denoted by a Greek notation called as lambda. Here onwards you should know what this notation is. Okay? This is the notation always used for a concept called as wavelength. Now, is it the only distance? So this distance can be, analyzed, at different points also. Say if I talk about a point here at the top of the crest and another point at the top of the crest over here, the distance between these 2 points is also wavelength. Similarly, if I talk about the trough, the point on the trough over here and the point on the trough over here, and the distance between these 2 points is also wavelength. So what is wavelength in general? Basically, yeah, so it's a distance traveled by the light wave in the direction of wave in one cycle in general, they say, or between the 2 points which are in the same state of vibration or same phase. This is how you define wavelength. It's denoted by lambda. This notation is a Greek notation. This is how you are supposed to put it basically. Soham, you can just put out the video basically. Yeah, denoted by lambda. SI unit for wavelength will be meter. Why? Because it is a distance, and 1 angstrom unit. Okay, so you can see 1 angstrom unit is also represented as AU, or A raised to 0 is equal to 10 raised to minus 10 meter. So either you put it in terms of meter or in terms of angstrom, and this is the relation between angstrom unit and meter. Please make a note of it. Here onwards, whenever I refer to wavelength, wavelength means this entire thing. Hopefully done. Please let me know once you're done so that we move ahead. So most of you say that. Okay, let's proceed then. The other parameters involved with the light wave, and they are time period and frequency of light. Okay, this is something which we need to understand now. Again, I plot the same transverse wave, electromagnetic wave in 2 dimensions. So the time taken to complete one cycle means it starts from here. It comprises of one crest, one trough. Okay, so when it ends, we say one cycle is over. So the time taken for the one cycle to get over for a wave is called as time period of the wave. This is how you define time period. It's denoted by the notation capital T. Okay, so time taken by one wave is called as time period. Now, how do you define frequency? Number of waves in 1 second is called as frequency. Now, if you try to correlate F and T over here, they are reciprocals of each other. You can see. Okay, so number of wave 1, time period is T. All right. So for time period 1, how many is called as frequency? So you can see cross multiply, you will get it as F is equal to 1 by T. So here you can come to a conclusion where you understand one thing: the frequency and time period are reciprocal of each other. Please make a note of it, and once you're done with it, please let me know.
Yes, sir.
Sir,
Done, sir.
Okay, great.
sir.
Yes. Yeah.
Hello, sir. Yeah, I have a doubt.
Yeah.
Is time period equal to wavelength?
No.
See here, wavelength is a distance, and time period is calculated in terms of time. So even if we are talking about the same 2 points for defining wavelength and time period, still they both are different entities. Is that okay? Did you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we are talking
Yes, sir.
about the same 2 points, but when we talk about wavelength, we talk about distance. When we talk about time period, we talk about the time in seconds. That's the difference. Okay. Hopefully noted it down. So should we move ahead then? We all ready for Proceeding?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great, great. So let's move ahead. Now we need to establish the relationship between C, lambda, and F. C is the speed of light. Lambda stands for wavelength, and F stands for the frequency. So we need to understand the relation between this because time and again we are going to use this relationship for solving problems. So let's understand this. So speed, basically we can define it as distance divided by time. For one wave, obviously we know distance will be equal to lambda. And for one wave, we know time is equal to time period, that is capital T. And speed will be given by the notation c. So using all these notations, I'm just trying to substitute these notations here in the formula. So let's see what we get. So c is equal to distance is lambda divided by the time is capital T. Now 1 by t, if you observe, if I shuffle it, if I take 1 by t outside. So 1 by t is nothing but frequency, right? So you can see frequency is 1 by t. So ultimately you end up getting c is equal to f lambda or lambda f, where c stands for speed, lambda stands for wavelength, and f stands for frequency. So you get a new definition for speed over here. Just like speed was defined as distance per unit time, now you can define speed as the product of wavelength and frequency. That's the relationship between speed, wavelength, and frequency. Hopefully you have understood this. Please make a note of it. Once you are done with it, let me know.
Done, sir.
Okay, so stop using yes.
Done, sir.
Good. So let's move ahead then. Let's enter greater details. Let's talk about the characteristics of light in general. So in a given medium, light will always travel in a straight line. We also call it as rectilinear propagation of light. Rectilinear propagation of light means light is bound to travel in a straight line in a given medium. Medium changes, yeah, the order in which it is moving will change. That means, it will undergo different phenomena. Now, if the medium remains fixed, then the light wave will travel with constant speed, frequency, and wavelength. What is the other way of understanding this? If the medium changes, maybe there would be some change in the parameters. Okay, so we are going to think about that also. So please make a note of this before I move ahead. So for a given medium, these two things would be followed by light.
Sir, one doubt.
Yeah, ask me.
Sir, does the speed of the light can be depend on its strength also?
It can be dependent on what? What did you say?
Strength
No, I didn't get what the word was.
from its source.
Source. You mean to say?
Uh,
It won't depend on the source because speed of light in air is constant, that is 3 into 10 raised to 8. But if the medium changes, the medium through which the light is passing, the speed will also change. Okay, so source has nothing to do with the speed of light. Remember that. Okay, this is something which we will come to know in subsequent sessions. Hopefully you have noted it down. So let's move ahead. Okay. Now let's think about if the medium changes, then you can see the velocity and the wavelength changes. This is what I was talking about. Velocity and wavelength will change if the medium changes, but the frequency of the light will remain unchanged. This is something crucial which is to be remembered. The frequency won't change if the medium changes, but the velocity and the wavelength of the light changes. So very important interpretation. Make a note of it and let me know once you're done with it. So most of you say, yeah. Okay. So let's move ahead.
Done.
Yeah. Interesting thing. If a light wave consists of a single frequency or wavelength, we will call it as monochromatic light. Just like laser light or sodium lamp light, they are all monochromatic. Why? Because they will have single wavelength. Single wavelength means single color. So such light which comprises of single wavelength or frequency, we call such light as monochromatic light. Make a note of it. Hopefully done. So let's move ahead then. We're done with it. Please notify in the chat section. Hopefully done. Let's move ahead. Now, if a light wave consists of two or more frequencies or wavelengths, then we will call it as composite light. Okay. Examples of basically talking about the composite light, we will talk about the polychromatic light then. This is a composite light, more than two frequencies. So the two mixed color giving rise to the third color will come into existence in this case. Okay. Please note it down so that we move ahead.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you say done. Now let's talk about specifically about polychromatic light. So in fact it has many frequencies or many colors, just like spectrum with jaw. We all know that, right? A white light. It comprises of many colors, 7 colors basically. So we call such light as polychromatic light. White light or sun rays which can be easily dispersed into 7 colors. We call such light as polychromatic. So make a note of it. Okay. Hopefully done. Most of you say that. Let's move ahead then. Just give me a moment. Share a different screen with you. So, based on the basics which we have studied, today we would be defining a different branch of physics, okay, which constitutes the part of our syllabus also. And that branch is called as ray optics. Let's say what ray optics is. Okay. We want to discuss ray optics in greater details. Let's get introduced to this concept of ray optics. Let's say what ray optics is. We might have seen, we might have drawn ray diagrams for microscopes and telescopes. You all know very well when light meets a surface separating two different medium, then either of these things can happen. Okay, either reflection will take place, or refraction will occur, or the light ray will bend, You can see the light ray may bend around the edges of the obstacle also, right? And this is called as diffraction. Okay, so when the light rays are incident in the object, they may bend at the edges of the object, but then that phenomena is diffraction. But we are mostly aware of reflection, refraction, total internal reflection. Here is another phenomena, diffraction. Okay. So you talk about ray optics, you don't consider diffraction. You just consider reflection, refraction, total internal reflection. So study of light without considering the diffraction effect will be called as ray optics. So this is the most convincing definition for ray optics for us. So please make a note of it and then we proceed further. Once you are done with it, let me know. Most of you say done. Okay. So in ray optics, we have already started studying ray optics. So we have studied refraction and total internal reflection in greater details in the previous session. Now comes the time for the concept called as reflection. Let's see, we'll go ahead with that. So today, specifically, we'll try to build up the basics regarding reflection of light.
Sir, can you please show the previous slide for 2 minutes?
Yeah. Yes. So now let me know if you are done with it, then we move ahead. Okay.
Done, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Let's move ahead. Okay. Now let's talk about reflection of light. What is it basically? It's a change in the path of light without change in medium. And what was refraction? Refraction was also change in the path of light, but with the change in the medium. So that's the difference between reflection and refraction. So for reflection of light, you all know you require a reflecting surface. So this is how you can change the path of the light in the same medium. Say for example, you can see the incident ray incident on the reflecting surface and reflected as a reflected ray. We all know the laws of reflection also. Suppose I draw a normal, then in that case, the angle of reflection will be always equal to angle of incidence. So this is the first law. And the second law can be stated as the incident ray, reflected ray, and the normal, they lie in the same plane if you observe. Okay. Then the third law is the incident ray, reflected ray. They are lying on the opposite sides of the normal. Okay. So this is how we state laws of reflection. So please make a note of it. Yeah. So yeah, hopefully things are sorted out. I mean, you are done with it. So we will see. Let's move ahead then. So this is the basic definition of reflection, and we have stated the laws of reflection as well. Okay. Let's to understand reflection. Let's, look at a picture. How a picture is being caused out of reflection. Okay, so you are supposed to take a good look at the picture, okay, and try to understand what it tries to portray. Hopefully, you are able to view this.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, if I put a steel rod or something like that at the center, which will act as a reflecting surface, can anybody recognize what it can be? Anybody who wanted to speak can unmute and speak on this. What it is trying to portray.
Looking like a moon, half moon.
Yeah,
To portray.
yeah, there can be n number of inferences drawn out of it. But then let's see. Okay, for understanding it, what we will do, we will just try to put a cylindrical pin type of thing over here, center, and let's see what it looks like. Okay, it's confusing. We are putting a steel rod, the circle, okay, and we see something unbelievable. Okay, let's see. Yeah, that gives you the reflection, gives you the image of a person. Do you know who this person is?
No.
No, sir.
JRD Tata. Okay, just to
Oh
give
my
you,
God.
just to give you an understanding, how reflection can work wonders at times.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's move ahead then. Yeah.
Sir,
So
I have
yeah,
a doubt.
yeah, yes.
Why only the steel rod? Why can't we put
It, it,
any other
it,
subject?
it could have been any other reflecting surface, like mirror also. You would have placed a mirror like this, covering it like 3 dimensions. Like you would have got the same picture. All right.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Now coming back to what she said, yeah, it could have been any reflecting surface. Okay. So what are the reflecting surfaces which we use in day-to-day life? We want to focus on that today. Okay. So we all know the reflecting surfaces for us. They are spherical mirrors, isn't it? So what is a spherical mirror basically? How do you define a spherical mirror? How do you prepare a spherical mirror? You cut a part of a sphere and then you paint some part with silver so that the surface from which reflection will take place. Because the surface as reflecting surface. Okay, you can look at this. So just we give different shapes to this, and they would act like mirrors. Okay. So one simple thing, it's about a spoon basically, right? You hold it this way, it will act like a concave mirror. You hold it this way, it will act like a convex mirror, isn't it? We should make a note of it before we move ahead. Once you are done with it, let me know, okay, so that I can show you the slides. I have prepared the slides in such a manner that things become easier, self-understanding.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So hopefully done, right? Let's move ahead. Okay, so most of you say yes. Yeah. Let's talk about the types then. We have discussed types. Okay, so convex mirror. You can see. Okay, how do you prepare a convex mirror? You cut a sphere in such a manner, and the inner part is painted with silver. You can, so that the outer part becomes a reflecting surface. Such type of mirror is convex mirror. So in day-to-day life, if you come across such mirror, near our parking bays, you have a convex mirror like this. All right. These are some examples of convex mirror. Please make a note of it. Once you are done with it, please let me know. So we have defined convex mirror. The second type of mirror can be concave mirror. How do you prepare a concave mirror? Again, you cut a sphere, right? Now, instead of painting it from the inner part, you're just painting it from the outer part. So the reflecting surface is the inner part. This type of mirror is a concave mirror. These are some examples of concave mirrors. Come across. See the images formed because in the later stages we are going to discuss the types of images formed as well. Please make a note of this. Once we are done with it, so we move ahead then.
Done, sir.
Yeah. So now, before we understand how the images are formed, what type of images we come across for different cases, we should know some terminologies related to spherical mirrors. Okay. The first thing which we should know is what exactly is the pole of a mirror. If I want to show the pole, it's a geometric center, the spherical surface. So point P will be denoting the pole of the mirror, and now try to locate where point P is. Okay, so you can see for this particular mirror, this point stands as the pole of the mirror. For this mirror, it is pole. So one is convex, other is concave mirror. One thing is about pole. Please make a note of this before I show you the second terminology.
Done, sir.
Okay, let's move ahead. It's about what exactly the center of curvature is. So let's understand. The center of a sphere for which the given surface forms a part is called as center of curvature. Now, how do you locate it? Okay. Just have a look at it. This particular point will form the center of the sphere. And from this point, from this sphere, this particular mirror was prepared. So the center of that sphere from which this mirror is prepared is called as center of curvature. This is how you locate it for, you can see, convex mirror as well as concave mirror. Please make a note of it. Once done, let me move to the move forward. Yeah, most of you say done. Let's move ahead.
Done.
Yeah, let's understand what is radius of curvature. Okay, so you can see the radius of the sphere for which the spherical surface forms a part. That means whatever was that radius of the sphere. Okay, so for example, PC over here. Hopefully, you are able to locate the distance in both the cases. That is R. So this red line marking the distance is capital R, and capital R is radius of curvature. So please make a note of this.
Done, sir.
Okay, fine. Okay, so most of you say done. Let's move ahead. Let's understand what principal axis of a spherical mirror would be. So line joining the pole, okay, the center of the curvature, and its continuation. So the yellow part you can see in animation is the principal axis. Again, make a note of principal axis. Okay, that's be done. Done. Let's move ahead then. Let's talk about what is focus or principal focus denoted by small f. You all know whenever a parallel beam of light is incident, say for example, let's take a concave mirror over here. The parallel beams are incident on the concave mirror. They all will, try to converge at a point after reflection. So all these rays you can see they try to meet at a point after reflection. We call that point as principal focus. So because the concave mirror is trying to converge all the rays to principal focus, we will also call it as converging mirror. Okay, remember that. And had it been, appearing to diverge in case of convex mirrors, then the mirror would have called as diverging mirror. So this fixed point, either the ray converge at that point or the rays appear to get diverged from that point, depending upon what type of mirror we are using. For concave, it is converging. For convex, it will be diverging. Such point will be called as principal focus of the mirror. Please make a note of it.
Yes, sir.
Very done. Let's stop. Yeah. Let's move ahead then.
Done, sir.
Yeah. So let's talk about focal length. But now here, when I'm talking about focal length, I'm showing you the convex mirror. And when we are talking about convex mirror, you can see the rays after reflection appear to diverge. Therefore, they are shown in the dotted line. You can see the animation. Okay, they appear to diverge from a particular point. Here lies the focus. You can see. For concave mirror, the focus was on this side. The distance between focus and the pole will be called as focal length in both the cases. Please make a note of it. So let's talk use data. Let's move ahead then. Let's understand what focal plane is in 3 dimensions. Okay. So here you can see a concave mirror is being presented. Okay. So the parallel beams are incident with some angle. Obviously, they will get reflected. And we can depict the angle of incidence and angle of reflection over here. So the plane which we are talking about, normal to the principal axis, when I say normal to principal axis, that means you have to imagine it in this manner. Okay, and just check out. Yeah, this plane I'm talking about, a plane which is normal to principal axis. We will call it as focal plane. Please take a note of this. So hopefully you people say you're done with it, right? So let's move ahead then. Let's talk about what exactly. For both the type of mirrors, one should very well understand that focal length, what's the relation between radius of curvature and focal length? The focal length is half of radius of curvature.
Yes.
Yeah, remember this. Okay. Second, for a plane mirror, if you talk about a plane mirror, okay, which we use in day-to-day life to view ourselves, obviously, then there you can see the radius of curvature is infinity, and therefore the focal length is also infinity. So, very important point to be noted. Let's make a note of it and then note it down. Let me know.
Done, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Very nice. So most of you say done. Let's move ahead.
Done, sir.
Yeah. Here onwards, we would be adopting some sign conventions, in ray optics. These sign conventions would be utilized always and always to draw the ray diagrams and solve problems on the ray diagrams also. So let's understand what these conventions are once for all. Okay. The first convention is all the ray diagrams are drawn with incident light traveling from left to right. This is the first convention. Second, all the distances are to be measured from the pole of the mirror or optical center of lens in case of lenses if we study later. As of now, strictly we are discussing mirrors. Why? Because we are discussing reflection of light. But then the same thing can be parallelly applied there also in lenses. Okay. Therefore, I'm just mentioning it simultaneously. So again, I repeat the second point correspondingly very important. All the distances are to be measured from the pole of the mirror or optical center of the lens in case of lenses. Distances measured to the left of the pole of the mirror are considered as negative, and distances measured towards the right from the pole would be considered positive. Distances which are measured above principal axis would be considered positive, and vice versa. Distances which are measured below the principal axis, they are to be considered negative. Okay, please make a note of these sentences. Once you are done with it, let me know.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, most of you say, yeah. Let's move ahead then. Here also, when do we consider that the image is a real image? Okay. So if the rays after reflection at the spherical surface converge to a point, then that point is considered as a real image. Now, when do we consider virtual image in case of reflection for spherical surfaces? If after reflection, rays appear to diverge, the point where the rays are drawn backwards, we'll call that point as virtual. The meet as called as virtual image. The image formed there will be virtual image. Then the next point, as the rays are reflected back in rarer medium by spherical surface, the converging rays form a real image in the rarer medium. When real image is formed, obviously image distance V will be negative. Remember that. Let's talk about the virtual image. Now it's formed on the other side of the lens. So because it appears, right? So V would be positive. The image distance would be positive for virtual. So please make a note of it.